I didn't find this case because of a murder. I found it because of paperwork that never should have existed. In 2016, I was contracted by a regional oversight committee to review archived radio logs from rural law enforcement departments across the Midwest. The project was dull by design. Digitize analog records, flag inconsistencies, and close the files. Most of what I reviewed involved routine patrols, noise complaints, traffic stops that went nowhere. Then I came across a stack of handwritten radio logs from a county sheriff's department in eastern Wyoming. They were labeled Route 97, Night Patrol. Route 97 hasn't existed since 2009. It was officially decommissioned after repeated flood damage and erosion made it unsafe. The asphalt was stripped in sections. Signage removed. According to state records, the road was closed permanently. But the logs continued until 2013. Every page was filled out by the same officer, Deputy Aaron Holt. Each entry was meticulous. Time stamped down to the minute. Weather conditions noted. Mileage recorded. And every single call originated from the same location. Mile marker 41. There was no mile marker 41 on Route 97. There never had been. Deputy Holt transferred to the County Sheriff's Department in 2008. He was in his early 30s, previously employed by a city police force in Colorado. Personnel records described him as quiet, procedural, highly compliant with protocol. The kind of officer departments like because they don't make waves. When Route 97 was officially closed, the department reassigned patrol responsibilities. But Holt requested to remain assigned to the route. The request was approved. There's no explanation why. The logs begin normally. January 12, 2009, 10:04 p.m. Patrol initiated. Weather clear. Visibility low. No activity. He drove the route nightly, or what remained of it. Most officers avoided the area after dark. No lighting. No traffic. No reason to be there. Holt went anyway. At first, the calls were non-existent. Just static check-ins. Radio silence. Then in March, the first call appears. March 3, 2009, 11:17 p.m. Incoming call received. Caller reports vehicle stopped. No further details. No caller ID. No callback number. Holt logged it as unverified and continued patrol. 2 weeks later. March 18, 2009, 11:42 p.m. Incoming call. Same voice. Says, still here. Still where? Holt noted that the signal triangulated near mile marker 41. There was no intersection there. No pull-off. Just a long eroded stretch of land that sloped down toward a dry ravine. By April, the calls were regular. Always between 11 p.m. and midnight. Always brief. Always from the same voice. Mel. Come. Flat. Dispatch recordings, what little survived, confirmed this. The voice never raised, never panicked. It spoke like someone reading from a script they'd memorized long ago. Vehicle still stopped. Lights not working. Can't see the road. Holt began responding in person. His patrol car GPS logs show him stopping at the same coordinates night after night. Engine idling. Headlights on. Sometimes for minutes. Sometimes for hours. No backup was requested. No incident reports filed. When his supervisor asked why he kept returning to a closed route, Holt responded, "Calls keep coming in." The supervisor assumed prank calls. Rural departments get them constantly. But phone records didn't match any active line. The calls weren't coming from a phone. They were coming through the radio. That shouldn't have been possible. In June, Holt added a note that stands out. June 9, 2009, 11:31 p.m. Caller says he can see my lights now. There was no one recorded as present. Thermal imaging was never used. No spotlight sweeps logged. Just Holt sitting in his cruiser, engine running, radio open. From this point forward, the logs change tone. Holt begins describing what he sees. Not suspects. Not vehicles. Reflections. Something reflective near the ravine. Movement when lights sweep left. Looks like road continues. The road didn't continue. Satellite imagery confirms Route 97 ended nearly half a mile before Holt's recorded stopping point. Beyond that was exposed earth and collapse. But Holt wrote as if the road extended farther at night. In August, the caller speaks more. August 22, 2009, 11:47 p.m. Caller says he's been waiting since the accident. Doesn't specify year. No accident was recorded at that location. Not officially. But a search of pre-digital archives later uncovered something else. In 1974, before Route 97 was renumbered and paved, a state trooper responding to a late-night call drove off an unmarked edge during a storm. The body was recovered days later. The patrol car was never found. The incident occurred near what would later become mile marker 41. Holt was never informed of this. By winter, Holt stopped describing the caller as male. He started writing. Voice sounds close. Voice sounds inside cruiser. Dispatch audio from December includes Holt asking quietly, "Can you see me?" The response is almost inaudible, but the transcript notes. Affirmative. In January 2010, Holt requested permission to remain on night patrol exclusively. No explanation given. Permission granted. From then on, the logs become disturbing. Holt begins responding to calls that dispatch never hears. Entire conversations appear only in his handwriting. Caller, I don't remember leaving. Holt, can you step back from the edge? Caller, there is no edge anymore. Holt started staying past shift end, sometimes until 3 or 4 a.m. His mileage logs don't add up. Too few miles for the time recorded. As if he wasn't driving. Just sitting. Listening. In March 2011, a new entry appears. March 14, 2011, 11:19 p.m. Caller says I've been here before. Says I answered last time too. That sentence is underlined. Twice. By now, other officers noticed Holt's behavior. He slept during the day. Avoided conversation. Stopped responding to non-Route 97 calls. When asked directly what he was doing out there, Holt reportedly said, "Making sure he doesn't wait alone." The final log entry is dated October 3, 2013. 10:58 p.m., patrol initiated. 11:06 p.m., incoming call. 11:07 p.m., caller says you're early tonight. 11:09 p.m., visual on vehicle. Same model. Same damage. 11:10 p.m., caller asks if I remember. 11:11 p.m., I do. There is nothing after that. No sign-off. No end-of-shift notation. Deputy Aaron Holt never returned from that patrol. His cruiser was found the next morning parked at the edge of the eroded road. Engine cold. Driver's door open. No footprints. No skid marks. The radio was still on. Dispatch reported intermittent static throughout the night. At 11:11 p.m., a transmission came through on Holt's channel. It was his voice. Come. Flat. Vehicle stopped. Lights not working. Then nothing. The case was closed as a disappearance. Route 97 was buried further. Access blocked completely. The logs were boxed and archived. Except one thing. In 2016, during digitization, an audio file appeared attached to Holt's final entry. It was time-stamped 11:11 p.m. It's only 6 seconds long. You hear wind. Then a second voice. Not Holt's. Dispatch, it says. Officer still here. The case file is only 12 pages long. That alone should have raised questions. Most welfare checks that end in death, disappearance, or internal review are thick with addendums. Supplemental reports, supervisor notes, body cam transcripts, union responses. This one wasn't. It was thin, clean, final, stamped cleared, and no further action required. The officer involved was Sergeant Paul Renner, 21 years on the force, rural Pennsylvania, night shift supervisor. No prior disciplinary history. He vanished on February 6, 2012. Officially, the department says he left his residence voluntarily sometime after midnight. Unofficially, every piece of evidence suggests he never stepped outside. The call came in at 11:47 p.m. Dispatch recorded it as a routine welfare check. An elderly woman, neighbor concerned about lights being on continuously. No response at the door. No vehicle movement. Address, 312 Granger Hollow Road. A dead-end street. 4 houses. Heavy tree cover. No street lights. Sergeant Renner was already off shift. He had clocked out at 11:30 p.m., returned home, and logged out of the mobile system. But at 11:52 p.m. he radioed dispatch. I'll take it. That's the first irregularity. Off-duty supervisors rarely self-assign calls, especially welfare checks at the end of a shift, but Renner was known for it. Didn't like things sitting overnight, his captain later said. Renner lived alone, divorced, no children. His house was 15 minutes from Granger Hollow Road. According to dispatch, he acknowledged the call, gave his unit number, and went silent. At 12:14 a.m., dispatch logged the welfare check as cleared. No status update, no arrival confirmation, no subject contacted. Just cleared. That's the second irregularity. Renner's patrol vehicle never moved. GPS logs confirm it was parked in his driveway from 11:36 p.m. onward. The engine never started again that night. His personal vehicle was still there the next morning. His front door was locked. Inside, everything was normal. Too normal. I reviewed this case in 2019 during a departmental audit triggered by unrelated missing evidence complaints. Renner's file surfaced because of a timestamp mismatch between dispatch software versions. The welfare check clearance time didn't align with the system update. That's when someone finally asked the obvious question. How did Sergeant Renner clear a call he never arrived at? The department's initial response was simple: clerical error. They said Renner must have radio dispatch from the scene, and the GPS malfunctioned. Except the radio logs don't support that. The only transmission after 11:52 p.m. came at 12:13 a.m. And it wasn't standard. The transcript reads, RN12, it's quiet now. Dispatch, confirm contact? RN12, yes. There is a pause. Then, RN12, she's not alone anymore. Dispatch didn't respond. The call was marked cleared 1 minute later. Renner's body cam footage should have filled the gaps. There was none. The camera was docked at his house, charging. No footage recorded after 11:31 p.m. His in-car camera also shows nothing. The car never left. The department leaned heavily on the idea that Renner drove his personal vehicle to the scene. But neighbors' cameras show no car leaving his driveway. No headlights. No engine noise. And Renner didn't take his keys. They were found on the kitchen counter. The house itself tells a quieter story. Renner's living room light was on. Television off. Couch untouched. His uniform was folded neatly on a chair, like he planned to wear it again. His duty belt was hanging where he always left it. His radio was on the kitchen table, still powered, volume low. When Internal Affairs played back the radio's buffer memory, they found something unsettling. The device had received traffic after 11:52 p.m. Not dispatch traffic. Ambient audio. When? A faint hum. And once, very clearly, floorboards creaking. Renner lived in a single-story ranch. No one else was inside. The welfare check address, 312 Granger Hollow Road, belonged to Eleanor Pike, age 84. She had lived there since 1961. When officers finally went to the address the next morning, they found her deceased in her living room chair. Cause of death, natural causes. Estimated time of death, several hours earlier. But there was a detail that didn't fit. Her front door was locked from the inside, and her hallway floor was wet. Not spilled water. Track. Bare footprints, leading from the front door to nowhere. They stopped halfway down the hall. No return prints. No shoes missing. No explanation. The house had another anomaly. The radio. Eleanor Pike owned a police radio, not a scanner. An actual department-issued unit. It was found on her kitchen table. Powered on. The serial number matched one assigned to Sergeant Paul Renner. Except Renner's radio was still at his house. This one had been reported destroyed in 1998 after a vehicle fire. It shouldn't have existed. The last transmission stored on it was timestamped 12:12 a.m. The audio is degraded, but the transcript notes. Unknown voice, he said he'd come if I called. Then static. Internal Affairs closed the case in 6 weeks. They concluded Renner likely left voluntarily and met with foul play unrelated to the welfare check. No suspects were named. The Pike residence was sold. The radio disappeared from evidence. The file was sealed. Except for one thing. During my audit, I requested archived 911 calls from Granger Hollow Road going back 20 years. There were 5. All welfare checks. All late night. All involving elderly residents. And all cleared by the same officer, Paul Renner. even when he wasn't on shift. One call from 2007 includes a note written by a dispatcher. Sergeant Renner says she knows how to reach me. Renner didn't work that district in 2007. When I interviewed retired dispatch staff, one woman remembered something odd. Sometimes, she said, we'd hear him breathing before he answered, before dispatch called him. Renner's house was demolished in 2014. During teardown, contractors found damage beneath the flooring in the hallway leading to the bedroom. Long gouges, as if something heavy had been dragged across the floor. There were no blood traces. No explanation. The welfare check at 312 Granger Hollow Road remains officially resolved. But every time a similar call comes in now, the system flags it. And the department policy is clear. No officer is allowed to clear a welfare check alone, especially from home. The first report says the officers were dead before midnight. The radio recordings say otherwise. I was assigned to review this case in 2020 as part of a cold weather fatality audit covering northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. The focus was procedural failure, response delays, weather misjudgments, communication breakdowns. What I found instead was a timeline that refused to stay dead. The incident occurred on January 17, 2004, during a prolonged lake-effect snowstorm that shut down entire counties. Roads disappeared. Power failed. Visibility dropped to near zero. 2 officers from the Clearwater County Sheriff's Office were dispatched to a single-vehicle accident near Forest Service Road 611, a barely maintained stretch of land that cut through state forest and skirted a frozen lake. Their names were Deputy Mark Ellison and Deputy Ryan Cole. Both were experienced. Both had driven that road dozens of times. Neither came back. The call came in at 8:42 p.m. A passing snowplow operator reported headlights visible off the road near the lake. No movement. No hazard lights. Just a stationary glow through heavy snow. Ellison and Cole acknowledged the call at 8:47 p.m. They requested no backup. That was mistake number 1. By 9:18 p.m., dispatch lost visual GPS tracking on their unit. The storm was interfering with satellite signals. Not unusual. Radio contact, however, continued. At 9:26 p.m., Cole radioed in. Vehicle located. No occupants inside. Wind noise. Heavy breathing. Ellison followed up seconds later. Tracks lead toward the lake. Dispatch advised them to wait for backup. Ellison responded. We can see the ice from here. That line is circled in red ink in the original transcript. Forest Service Road 611 ends before the lake. There is no direct access. But during winter, when snow fills the terrain and erases boundaries, the lake surface can look like an extension of the road. This has caused accidents before. What happened next should have triggered an immediate emergency response. It didn't. At 9:34 p.m., dispatch asked for a status update. Ellison replied, "We're walking out." Cole added almost jokingly, "Feels solid." The tone matters. There's no panic. No urgency. Just confidence. At 9:41 p.m., the radio picks up something new. Not voices. A low rhythmic sound. Like boots on ice. Then silence. Backup was dispatched at 10:02 p.m. after repeated unanswered calls. By then, the storm had worsened. It took responders nearly an hour to reach the location. They found the patrol vehicle abandoned near the tree line. Engine running. Driver's door open. Footprints led away from the road. Toward the lake. The tracks were clean. Deliberate. Side by side. They went onto the ice. Then stopped. No brake marks. No struggle. Just an abrupt end. Search teams assumed the officers fell through thin ice and were pulled under by the current. Divers were called. Recovery was planned for morning. At 10:57 p.m., dispatch logged both officers as presumed deceased. At 11:03 p.m., Ellison's radio transmitted. "Dispatch," he said calmly. "We need help out here." Dispatch froze. The channel lit up. The GPS signal reappeared, 300 yards out on the lake. That shouldn't have been possible. At 11:05 p.m., Cole spoke. "We can't find the road." Wind howled behind his voice. Dispatch ordered them to stay still. Ellison responded. "There's lights on the ice." Search teams halted. No one moved. They assumed hypothermia-induced confusion. But the transmissions kept coming. Every 6 to 8 minutes. Always calm. Always controlled. Batteries getting weak. Still standing. Can you see us? At 11:32 p.m., dispatch asked a direct question. Confirm both officers alive. There is a long pause. Then Ellison. We're still here. The bodies were found at 6:14 a.m. Frozen solid. Standing upright. Side by side. 300 yards from shore. No sign of ice breakage. No water exposure. Medical examiners later confirmed the cause of death as hypothermia. Estimated time of death between 9:50 and 10:10 p.m. More than an hour before the final radio transmissions. Their radios were clipped to their belts. Powered off. Batteries dead. The lake surface beneath them was unbroken, as if they had never fallen. Just walked. And stopped. The department attributed the late transmissions to signal echo and atmospheric interference. That explanation falls apart under review. The recordings are clear, responsive, contextual. At 12:08 a.m., long after recovery teams had secured the scene, one final transmission came through on Cole's channel. Barely audible. Don't come out here. The voice is identified as Cole's, but slower, strained, like he's cold. The dispatcher on duty resigned 3 weeks later. She refused to testify at the internal review. Her written statement includes a single line. They answered questions we hadn't asked yet. Forest Service Road 611 was closed permanently the following spring. Warning signs were installed. Access blocked. Locals still avoid the lake in winter. Snowmobilers report radio interference near the center. Sometimes emergency channels open on their own. Sometimes a calm male voice comes through, asking where the road went. The case remains officially closed. But dispatch protocol now includes a rule written in bold. Never follow lights on frozen water. And if a unit answers after being declared dead, you stop responding, because sometimes whatever is out there is still listening. The interrogation transcript is real. At least that's what the database insists. It exists in the county system, stamped, indexed, and cross-referenced. The audio file is intact. The metadata is complete. Time codes align. Case number verified. The problem is the officer listed as conducting the interrogation was not on duty that night. According to payroll, building access logs, and department rosters, he wasn't even in the state. His name was Officer Daniel Mercer, and he never returned to work after that interview. This case comes from Caldwell County, Ohio, winter of 2017. I was brought in 2 years later to review a cluster of procedural anomalies related to closed-room recordings. Interrogations that didn't match body cam footage, interviews logged without entry scans, evidence appearing without chain of custody signatures. Mercer's name appeared 3 times, all on the same night. December 11, 2017. Officer Mercer clocked out at 6:02 p.m. That is not disputed. He swiped out of the building. Security cameras show him exiting through the main doors. His vehicle left the lot 6 minutes later. He had approved leave beginning the next day. His flight records show he boarded a plane to Phoenix at 8:41 p.m. Yet at 11:58 p.m., an interrogation began in Room B at Caldwell County Sheriff's Office. The officer conducting it was Daniel Mercer. The suspect was Thomas Iriton, age 34, arrested earlier that evening for trespassing and resisting. He was found wandering near a closed rail spur in sub-zero temperatures, barefoot, repeating that he missed the last train. Routine arrest. No violence. No intoxication. Body cam footage shows Iriton calm, cooperative, confused. At 11:41 p.m., he was placed alone in interview room B. At 11:58 p.m., the interrogation recording begins. Mercer's voice is clear. "Thomas," he says, "I need you to start from the beginning. There is no door opening sound. No chair movement. No indication anyone entered the room." Yet Mercer speaks as if seated directly across from the suspect. The interrogation lasts 27 minutes. It is quiet, measured. Mercer never raises his voice, never threatens, never references charges. He doesn't follow a script. He asks questions no officer should know to ask. Why that stretch of track? Why after dark? Why do you wait until the signal stops? Iritan becomes visibly distressed. At 12:11 a.m. he says, "You said you wouldn't make me remember this." Mercer replies, "I didn't. You did." There is a long pause. Then Iritan whispers, "You're not wearing shoes." That line doesn't appear in the official transcript. It's audible on the raw audio file. The department transcript omits it entirely. So does the follow-up exchange where Iritan starts crying and says, "They froze like that too." Mercer responds, "Stay with me." At 12:25 a.m. the interrogation ends. Mercer says, "This is where I stop." The audio cuts. The door camera outside interview room B shows no one entering or exiting before or after. At 12:31 a.m., another officer enters the room to transfer Iritan to holding. He freezes in the doorway. The room is empty. No suspect. No officer. Just a chair slightly angled away from the table. As if someone stood up. An alert was issued. The building was locked down. Iritan was later found at 1:12 a.m. standing on the closed rail spur 3 miles away, barefoot in the snow. He was alive. Hypothermic. Unresponsive. He never spoke again. The department tried to explain the interrogation away. They suggested Mercer conducted it earlier and the timestamp glitched. That explanation collapses instantly. The audio includes radio chatter timestamps embedded in the background, dispatch codes that align perfectly with real-time logs from that night. The interrogation happened when the system says it did, when Mercer could not have been there. Then there's Room B itself. Maintenance records show the room's motion sensor activated repeatedly between 11:58 p.m. and 12:25 a.m. 2 heat signatures. 1 stationary. 1 pacing. Thermal logs confirm this. But no entry scan. No exit scan. And no camera footage inside the room. That camera malfunctioned during that exact window. It has never malfunctioned before or since. Officer Mercer did not board his return flight. He never checked into his hotel. His phone last pinged near the airport, then went dark. His car was found 2 weeks later in the long-term parking lot. Inside was his duty belt. His boots, still damp, with salt residue consistent with winter road treatment used only in Caldwell County. The interrogation file remains in the system. It cannot be deleted. Attempts to archive it cause the database to crash. Every audit flags it. And once a year, usually in December, the audio file autoplays during overnight system maintenance. IT staff report hearing Mercer's voice through empty speakers. Always the same line. "Stay with me." Room B is no longer used. Suspects refuse to sit in the left chair. One detainee asked a deputy, unprompted, "Is that where the barefoot officer sits?" No one told him that. The case involving Thomas Iritan is closed. No charges filed. No explanation offered. And Officer Daniel Mercer remains officially listed as on extended leave, status pending. No death certificate. No termination. Just a gap in the roster. As if the department is still waiting for him to clock back in. The video is 42 minutes long. It's clear, stable, properly framed. No corruption. No missing frames. The audio is intact. The metadata is complete. There is no indication it was altered, staged, or recorded accidentally. The problem is simple. No officer remembers being there. I first encountered this case in 2021 while assisting with a statewide audit of digital evidence storage across several Midwestern police departments. The review focused on body camera retention compliance. What was kept, what was deleted, what had been improperly archived. One folder kept flagging itself. Every time the system ran an integrity check, it returned an alert tied to a single file. Case ID 19-4471B. Officer, unassigned. Status, arrest, suspect in custody. Location, unknown rural roadway, Iowa. There is no such thing as an unassigned arrest. Someone has to initiate it. Someone has to read rights. Someone has to transport the suspect. Someone has to remember. The department involved was small. Fewer than 30 sworn officers. Rural jurisdiction. Low crime. Everyone knew everyone else. When I asked the evidence supervisor about the file, she said she tried to delete it 3 times. "It keeps coming back," she told me. "And every time it does, the date changes." The current timestamp listed the file as created March 14, 2019, 2:08 a.m. That was impossible. Body cameras in that department auto-uploaded at dock stations. No officer had docked a camera at that time. I asked to watch the footage. No one else in the room wanted to. The video begins mid-motion. A flashlight beam swings across gravel. Heavy breathing is audible. Snow crunches under boots. The camera wearer is walking. The timestamp reads 1 hour 26 minutes and 11 seconds. There is no department splash screen. No officer ID overlay. No unit number. Just movement. The beam settles on a man standing on the side of a rural road. He's middle-aged. Thin. No coat. Hands visible. He doesn't look surprised. In fact, he looks relieved. The camera wearer stops several feet away. A voice speaks. "Evening," it says. The voice is calm. Neutral Midwest accent. The man nods. "You came back," he says. There is no response. At 1 hour 27 minutes and 4 seconds, the camera wearer asks for identification. The man reaches slowly into his pocket and produces a driver's license. The camera zooms in. The name is visible. Jonathan Klein. Date of birth, February 9, 1963. The address listed is a farmhouse outside the department's jurisdiction. The officer reads the name out loud, then says something no one can explain. "You've been walking a long time." Klein nods. "I didn't want to stop," he says, "but it always gets quiet here." The road around them is empty. No houses, no lights, no passing traffic. The officer asks where Klein is headed. Klein looks past the camera down the dark road. "Same place," he says. "I just never get there." At 1 hour 31 minutes and 22 seconds, the officer asks Klein to turn around. Klein does so without hesitation. He places his hands behind his back. He does not ask why. He does not resist. The officer cuffs him. Metal clicks. Procedure is followed perfectly. At 1 hour 33 minutes and 10 seconds, the officer reads Miranda rights. Word for word. Exactly as written in departmental policy. Klein listens, then says, "That's new." Here is where the video becomes difficult to watch. The camera angle changes slightly as the officer walks Klein toward the patrol car. The car is visible in the distance. Its lights are off. Its engine is running. The vehicle number is not visible. The department logo is partially obscured by dirt. At 1 hour 36 minutes and 44 seconds, Klein stops walking. The officer stops too. "What's wrong?" the officer asks. Klein turns his head just enough for the camera to catch his face. "You hear that?" he asks. "There is nothing but wind." The officer says, "Hear what?" Klein waits, then smiles faintly. "Exactly," he says. Klein is placed in the back seat. The door shuts. The camera wearer circles to the driver's side. As he opens the door, Klein speaks again. "You don't remember the others, do you?" The officer doesn't answer. At 1 hour 41 minutes and 3 seconds, the patrol car begins moving. The road ahead is unlit. No headlights appear in the opposite lane. No landmarks pass. The vehicle seems to be driving, but the scenery doesn't change. The same fence line. The same trees. The same bend in the road. Over and over. At 1 hour 49 minutes and 18 seconds, the officer speaks again. "Jonathan," he says, "how long have you been out here?" Klein exhales slowly. "Longer than you," he replies. The officer asks what that means. Klein doesn't answer. Instead he asks, "Do you still feel like you're going somewhere?" The patrol car slows. Stops. The engine keeps running. At 1 hour 52 minutes and 6 seconds, the officer turns around in his seat to face Klein. This is against policy. The camera captures Klein clearly. His eyes are wet. Not scared. Tired. "You'll forget this part," Klein says. They always do. The next 12 minutes contain no dialogue. The camera records the officer sitting still. Hands on the steering wheel. Breathing shallow. The patrol car never moves. At 2 hours 4 minutes and 33 seconds, the officer opens the door and steps out. The cold hits the microphone. Wind rushes. The officer walks around to the back seat and opens the door. Klein is gone. The seat is empty. The cuffs are on the floor. Close. The officer stands there for a long time. The timestamp advances. At 2 hours 7 minutes and 58 seconds, the officer says quietly, I already did this. Then the camera feed cuts. That is the end of the video. There is no arrest record for Jonathan Klein in any state database. No booking. No fingerprints. No court appearance. But Jonathan Klein is not a missing person either. I found him. Or rather, I found his death certificate. Jonathan Klein died in February 1996. Cause of death: exposure. He was found on the side of a rural highway less than 5 miles from where the body cam footage appears to have been recorded. The responding officer in 1996 logged the scene as quiet. That officer's name? Redacted. The report has been partially destroyed by water damage. When I brought this to the department's command staff, they insisted no such arrest occurred. They said no officer was missing time. No patrol car was unaccounted for. No one remembered Klein. But something changed after that meeting. Officers began reporting body cams activating on their own. Always after midnight. Always on rural roads. Always recording empty back seats. One deputy refused to wear his camera anymore. He resigned 2 weeks later. His exit interview includes a single handwritten note. He asked me if I still felt like I was going somewhere. The file still exists. It cannot be reassigned. It cannot be closed. And every time the system updates, the timestamp changes. The most recent update was last night, 2:08 a.m. Same as always. No officer logged in. No patrol scheduled. But the arrest status still reads, suspect in custody. As if someone is still driving. As if the road hasn't ended yet.